Hello, everyone, and welcome to another MMO Roundtable meeting. This discussion will be about travel. And Nelson, you were the one that introduced that on tonight's docket. So if you want to fire things off, and Zach, if you want to play Nelson's secretary, that'd be awesome.
Oh, sure. I'll take notes. Do I get to wear a mini skirt and stuff?
So what's our problem? What's first thing that comes to mind with travel, Nelson?
Well, the issue I have is the way that most modern games have approached travel, like Oblivion or the Fallout 3, where you have instant travel systems. And even in WoW, you do have that little flying doohickey, but that's just some artificial time that you spend, like some artificial 30, 45 seconds that you spend waiting to get from point A to point B. I think
depending on where you want to go, I must throw for the record, because from one end of the continent to another could still take 8 to 10 darn minutes.
Yep.
Right, but that's still 8 to 10 minutes of you doing nothing. I think that travel is actually a very important dynamic when you make it, well, essentially a commodity. When you make your time traveling a commodity that you have to ration. And I think that there's a lot of interesting things you can do with it. And, well, for example, with Morrowind, how you either had to manually travel from point A to point B, or how you had to understand the, what were they called, the Silk Striders.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But I think that travel would be an interesting dynamic if you made the world worth exploring, if you made traveling from point A to point B take long enough to where you want to minimize your trips, where it's actually a game in itself, where you're trying to come up with your own things, your list of things that you have to do. You have to establish where you need to go. You have to create waypoints. You have to look at the weather and all that stuff to get from point A to point B. And I'm not saying that this is something that's going to happen at the beginning of the game, where to even get to like the through the first portion of the game you have to do a bunch of traveling. But once you start actually exploring the world, once you get out past those initial cities, I think it would be a very interesting dynamic. And if there was a way to make that fun, if there was a way to make the exploration worth it, then not only are you having your own little mini game of prioritizing where you're going, what you're doing, I'm going to pick this up here and drop it off there and blah, 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 but you also have something to do in between the times that you're moving.
Let's start it out like this. Let's start it out with some stuff to write down. The first being planet to space. Something that deals with leaving the planet altogether. So, and we'll just consider space as being to another space station.
Now, am I way off base here when I just say this is a glorified loading screen?
Well, we still got to discuss how,
or are we actually talking about, is it shuttle-based? Is it,
yeah, I want to talk about that. Like, do we have to go to a city and
like a spaceport? Yeah,
like a spaceport, purchase a ticket, or however we're going to do it.
Well, until such time as we allow people to actively to go into space and explore it on their own, I'd say it needs to be regulated into, and it makes sense for it to be in the bigger cities.
Right, exactly.
And I really do like the ticket idea. And again, that's something from Star Wars Galaxies. But
you had to buy tickets in Star Wars Galaxy?
Yeah, you had to buy tickets to get in to do the inner, when you're inside of a planet doing the specialized fast travel.
It's no different than in its own way. You have to buy a ticket in World of Warcraft when you want to take a flight path from point A to point B.
Unfortunately, my whole train of thought got just derailed, burst into flames, and went tumbling down the side of the hill.
Whoa, fire extinguisher.
When Nelson was saying that in World of Warcraft, like when you take flight paths, you're just sitting there for a few minutes. And it's like, if I go get on Southwest Airlines, I go sit in a seat for, a lot more minutes, but that's what I do. I'm not having to do anything other than, eat my little pack of pretzels and sip on the drink.
Talking about, I bring my iPad and keep myself very entertained. Thank you.
Zach.
Sir.
We're making a game.
Life's boring.
If our life was so exciting that we didn't need games, we wouldn't be here right now.
Zach's
you're confusing me so bad, because you made the idea of hopping on a flight path and some amount of time passing while your character automatically travels through the air sound like a bad thing. Are you saying it's a bad thing? Because I'm confused.
I think it is a bad thing. I think that if people here decided to think outside the box a little bit, we could make something interesting.
That's a rude way to put that, Steve.
Yeah.
And I really resent it.
I do.
Just so you know.
I do.
I'm not talking to you, Jason. I'm talking specifically to Zach.
Oh, you said us people, so...
He doesn't seem to think that my idea has any merit. Where
I didn't say that. I said your idea confused me, and I
yeah,
wanted some clarification.
Yeah, hang on. I was about to say he's confused with your idea. He doesn't know. Do you like it taking a long time to get somewhere? Do you want it to be instant getting somewhere?
No. I like it taking a long time. I like people having to prioritize what they're doing. People having to plan what they're doing. I like that idea.
Well, hang on. Let me try to break it down to explain to you why I'm confused. Because if I get one more crack about thinking outside the box, this conversation is going to be over. I'll just call it. Because if I'm not adding to this conversation, I don't need to be here. So you've got completely active travel where you are having to push the W key to drive your character in a direction.
Put these over here because these are good points.
Hang on. This is separate. This is like just kind of a little thing. I can move it over in just a moment.
Okay.
So we've got active. You're holding down W, up arrow, forward, holding down the throttle, I don't know, to make your character move. Then let's say you've got passive travel.
You pay for a ticket, you're on
I'm sitting on a flight path for 5 minutes to get from point A
You're
to
on an
point B.
airplane.
And then we have instant travel, where I just suddenly blink from point A to point B. Now, I understand you. I can pretty much gather from context that you really don't like this one. But what's your problem with this one?
My problem is that when you're inside of that sort of system, you're not doing anything. And as a result, those time periods that you spend inside of that system need to be shortened significantly.
Okay.
Given an active system where you are actually engaged, you can allow travel between cities to take 10, 15 minutes, or travel from one side of the continent to the other side of the continent take 30 minutes to an hour.
I see what you're saying, but see, because you seem so against them, that's what confused me, because generally, like in every venue that I've ever experienced passive style travel, it's still faster than if I had walked it or traveled it through the active method.
Absolutely. I mean, you would still see in a world in which we had multiple cities, there still being some sort of shuttle-based service, Nelson, that I could go buy a ticket to go from city A to city B?
Yeah, and that could be something that's controlled by the player.
Because when a player first begins in the game and they've earned their first little bit of money, enough to afford a ticket, it seems like they should be able to afford a ticket to hop on a shuttle to go to another city way before they can afford to get some type of flying craft to take them from A to B. Even in WoW and other games, you've got to get your...
Even now, I can afford a bus ticket a lot easier than I can afford a Ford Focus.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's just my issue right there, because then you're introducing this passive travel system so early in the game that you're not encouraging people to make good use of their time. You're not encouraging people to make good use of their routes.
I'm really confused by that.
Yeah, just keep trying to pull it out.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to figure it, and that's...
My issue is the amount of time it takes to get from city to city. I want that time to be as large as possible without boring the player.
But you just said a minute ago you wanted that time to be shortened.
I didn't say that. If you heard it, I either said that wrong or you misheard me.
No, I heard you.
Yeah,
definitely.
I thought I heard that too.
Yeah,
you wanted it shortened significantly.
You wanted passive to be shorter.
Yeah.
I don't understand your standpoint at all, and maybe I'm all alone here. If I'm all alone, that's great. That doesn't mean I'm not thinking outside the box.
Let me try. I don't think Nelson, at least I hope, does not want to get away from passive, but he wants to truly make the world feel like it's the large world. The problem, if we really are doing a large world and you get on something that's passive and we're completely avoiding instant, now you've got 30 minutes to get from city A to city B, and you're just sitting there staring at your screen, and that's a problem because now your player is bored to death and nobody wants to do that. How can something, or what could be done that makes it entertaining or engaging to the player during this time that it takes to go this great distance by some shuttle? Am I right, Nelson, with what you're getting at?
I think it
fine.
is. Because that's the thing is I want the time, or I want the world to feel large, and instant travel and to an extent passive travel sometimes makes the world feel smaller than I would like it to be.
Just like it does in the real world. I mean, it's if I go climb on Southwest Airlines to fly to Vegas. I mean, that's just a few hours of my day. I could actually still spend the evening in the casino.
And I would
where
say,
if I wake up tomorrow morning and I decide to, drive my car or ride my 10-speed out to Vegas,
Awesome.
I need to really pack a lot of sandwiches, you know?
Well,
Okay.
one thing you could do for to get more involvement, I'm guessing you want more excitement for passive. You could do something like I don't know if you've ever seen the show Cash Cab, where you take a passive mode of transport from one place to another, and while you're doing that, your character is given a bunch of quizzes or something, little interactive things he's got to do, and if he fails, he gets dumped out. He's got to walk.
Yeah,
well,
find
one of the things we could do, using Leonard's idea that just kind of inspired this one, is even when you're flying into Alethea as a colonist, as a human, you have the ability to jack in to this virtual world for whatever it is that you may work on while you're on this long passage from Earth to Alethea. Mm-hmm. So one thing that could be done in instant travel is jacking into some world that now while you're traveling, and it's only while you're traveling, you can get into this like airlines virtual world. And I don't know what all.
I'm reaching for it.
One idea. Another is just the fact that this is going to be a world that is dynamic with God only knows what going on, and you're going to want to try to constantly keep up with your PDA. I'll just use that for lack of terms at the moment. One could easily use that 30 minutes time for lining up jobs or for looking for contacts where you're going or communicating with other people, or because you lose some of that in World of Warcraft. Again, I'm going to keep going back to that only because it's a grounded example. When you're on a flight path from A to B, you can communicate with friends, you can communicate with guildies, but that's it. It would be cool. Like, what if you had trade chat the entire way? I mean, that right there would change a lot of things because you're talking in trade to the entire city or whatever. You start getting locked out of some of the things that you can do.
The Peggle add-on.
Yeah, and some people just download the Peggle add-on and play Peggle the whole way, or Bejeweled, which is pretty funny. But
I don't think that's what Nelson's talking about. I think he'd like to have it. What I'm hearing is that he wants it to be a requirement that passive is more involved and is longer.
That's what it is. It's. I want it to be more longer. I want it to be longer. But in order to do that, there would have to be something more involved. In addition, you could also augment that by making that sort of travel. I mean, why don't you fly on a plane and go to Vegas tonight and then come back, after the weekend's over? You don't because it costs so.
No intention of going to Vegas. There's no reason for me to go there right now.
Right, but
actually, flights. I think I see where you're going, but I'm just going to let you know flights to Vegas are pretty cheap right now.
Yay! Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
In other words, you just want an in-flight movie for your passive.
Yeah.
So you're not bored.
No, I think
that's what I'm saying. That's what I was saying. I'm saying that travel right now is, really quick, but it's also expensive, and you also have to deal with the schedules of the airliners and all that stuff. If you made the passive system as involved, then that might satisfy sort of what I'm trying to get at. And do you guys understand what I'm trying to get at?
I do. I'm just where I'm coming up short is what could, on a passive mode of transportation, a player be required to do or get involved in to have them engaged during that time.
Yeah, because I got to tell you, like in any game where I've got those the passive style of travel, the only reason I do engage in it is because it generally is going to be faster than having to hoof it on my own. And most of the time, I fire it off and I actually walk away from my
Use
computer.
that as your opportunity to go get something to drink.
Bathroom break and food.
That's my bio break right there. Because I mean, if it's worthy of a flight path, it's generally more than a minute away.
Yeah.
And you run into the other problem if you start making all this travel, slower to get around just to make it more, or the world seem larger and to keep people in the smaller areas of this world, you're still going to run into the problem with what happens when a bunch of your guildies or you and a bunch of friends all want to get together and do something. It's like going, oh, let's go do a raid. Oh, I'm sorry, it's going to take me 45 minutes to get out there.
Exactly, and that's one of my big things about just the game in general is that any game, you want to keep people playing, not just sitting. I think the flight paths in WoW are about as long as they can possibly be, especially when you take from the northern tip of a continent down to the southern tip. That's about as long as you'd ever want to force somebody to basically be unable to play your game.
Yep.
And while they have ability to do a few things, like, yeah, I could download the Peggle add-on, or in our game, you could add on trade chat, you could, maybe there's even hacking missions or things that you could take on, entire quests that you could optionally take on. You still are lacking the freedom to go grab your character and run around and explore and do the things you're used to doing when you're not on that flight path. And so I don't think you want to extend that too terribly much. You want to keep that down to a minimum and still make it feel reasonable. I think there's a very delicate balance.
Everybody's going to hate this idea.
Yeah.
It's not even an idea. It's just something that just hit me. So
Sure.
I kind of never thought about this, to really cut down on passive flight. If you had some sort of flying craft, just like in WoW, you have your horse you can pull out.
Sure.
You can't just pull him out of your pocket. So if you go and get
Yeah, I
on
thought
a
about
passive
this.
thing,
Yeah.
your ship stays docked back wherever you got off
Right.
of it at and went
so
up
you
to
gotta,
it.
and it's like your car. You got to go catch a flight back.
Exactly. So now
Just
when
wanna
you
rent one.
when you get there, you could rent one, I guess, which is what I was getting to. Darn it. Or that would definitely cut down on passive and make people have to be out and about more because
Yeah.
you're going to want your ship with you. It just
Right.
feels weird stuffing your ship in your pocket when you're done.
Though, I mean, if it's, depending on how you handle passive travel, I mean, if it's something like a really big ship that's flying from city to city, it's possible that your little tiny one-seater could be loaded up in a cargo bay.
That's true. That is true.
Well, Zach, though, you did say previously that you would rather this game not be a lobby where people can go and join.
Yeah. Yeah,
things.
I did say that.
And
I don't think passive travel equates to this. If you disagree, that's entirely your prerogative.
No, I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying that when you suggested that when guilds want to get together, that should be instant. Or are you suggesting that? What's how much time and how much money would
In
you...
World of Warcraft, when a guild wants to get together and do something, I mean, it's different for every guild, but the way it generally works is, the first couple of people are going to fly out to the area where the instance is, and they'll use what's called a summoning stone out there. And the summoning stone will open up a portal, and then wherever you are in the world, it pops up on your end saying that, a portal.
Summoned to this
Yeah, you've been
location.
summoned to this location. Do you want to go, yes or no? And you say yes, and then you get pulled through the portal, and you're now there with your friends. So, in 5 to 8 minutes time, 5 to 10 minutes, you get all of your buddies there, and then you all run inside and you do your thing. As opposed to, like Lee said, if somebody's 45 minutes away, having to wait 45 minutes for that guy to get there is a bit of a pain.
I think that was one of the biggest mistakes that EverQuest did in the early days. Is you used to have to do boat trips, and your boat ride on the slowest or the fastest boat ride, I think, between continents was about a 10-minute trip. The slowest, right around 30 minutes. There was no fast travel. There was no summoning. So when a bunch of people were trying to get together for raids, you had to wait for everybody to get there. So what you ended up having to do was schedule times. And everybody was supposed to assemble ahead of time. Because in the early days, they didn't have the portal stones yet. You either had to travel by foot or boats, or you had to pay to get a port out to the nearest city, which was really expensive and hard to find somebody who was even in the area to port you out there. So getting a group together to do stuff was extremely painful to accomplish.
Now, at the same time, again, going back to WoW, for some of the most fun I ever had were times when a huge group of people would get together to attack the Alliance. And now, even then, you would generally have a warlock who was going to open up a summons and start bringing people through. But once everybody gets there, and most of the ones that I ran, it's now up to you to keep up with everyone, and because it's generally fast-paced, storming their castle or whatever it may be, trying to get down their king, and then moving on to the next city, and it's funny watching people get cut off and left behind, and it did make a very interesting feeling of keep up and don't get left behind, because you can't just get magically pulled right over. Even though, yes, they could open up another summons, but when you're caught going quickly between city to city using their rail system, you don't really have time to go in and start opening up summons and all. So if you got yourself cut off, then you just screwed yourself on the whole thing. I know, because I've been there.
Right. But the staging area was very, very fast. Once they started going and go, all right, we're staging here, open up the stones, everybody was getting summoned, and everybody was getting to the staging area very, very quick.
Yes, but
then once everybody was amassed, then it became
then the party
keep
began.
up or get left.
Exactly. Now, I don't know how we would cut this out, Nelson. But I still am a fan of the somewhat instant teleportation for the types of things we're talking about right now. If you're wanting to, and even then, it would have to be a device that is rather like with an Alethian, somebody that specializes in having the ability to open up some sort of portal. Like in WoW, you have mages with the ability to open up portals that can port people, which is great because I love being a mage, because I get paid all the time to port people to different cities. But I can't port them everywhere or anywhere in the game. So there are limitations. But at all of the major instances where people would get together as a group and play, there are summoning stones to get everybody together very quickly, as opposed to having to wait an hour or two because suddenly everybody decided they wanted to play something together. We would definitely, in that case, have to have some sort of instant or somewhat instant teleportation to make people want to get into these things as large groups and play.
Right. And a mechanic many, many games, not just MMOs, employ is the fact, or to cover what your concern is about exploration, is the fact that they force people to go the traditional land-bound way to a new area, to whatever that summoning stone is, or that portal, or that gateway, to unlock it, which then makes it easier for them to get there. Something that could be done in this one is, again, you'd have to go from station to station to connect your network. It's kind of like World of Warcraft's Flight Pass. You can't just walk up to any flight master and go anywhere in the world.
Nope.
You have to go visit and talk to that flight master first. So that does, give you the traditional go explore, find out what's there. But once you've established that connection, you can now use your passive mechanism to get back and forth between the two. And then your instant form of travels are reserved for being summoned by friends or party members, or you're paying for the privilege from a selected profession or class that is capable of porting you somewhere instantly.
Yeah. I mean, in this case, Nelson, in the specific case of a large group wanting to get together to do something as a group, obviously that's one of the things we want to strive to provide for players, because that's when the game just takes on a whole new life, when people are having to play together and coordinate their efforts. Wouldn't you, at that point, not want to have to wait on different people to take tremendous amounts of time to get there?
No, I mean, certainly that case makes sense.
Okay.
Once you start talking about more than one person, but I've been mostly talking about
I know,
single person or a group.
Right, but I wanted to throw that in because earlier when Zach mentioned the word instant and you mentioned the word I want to stab you in the eye, I want to say that instant is going to have to be in the game for at least that particular reason, for getting groups together for doing something.
And even then, I think there are implementations of instantaneous travel that are handled very responsibly in examples such as World of Warcraft. We can't just get together as a group and just Well, actually, these days, because there is the dungeon queue system, we can just group up and decide we want to go to a certain dungeon.
While we're all at different places and just all...
Unless we haven't actually been through it before.
True, because we still have to find it.
At the very least, we've got to discover it, which means 2 people minimum have to go out to it and stand at the summoning stone and bring the rest of the group here.
Exactly.
And that's a nice way to do it. The only thing that I would maybe change is I might get rid of the dungeon queue for that thing. But I see where they're coming from.
I do too.
Blizzard doesn't care as much about exploration.
Blizzard doesn't have a dynamic world.
Yeah.
Their world is the same
You see it
thing.
once and you're done.
That's right.
So it makes a lot more sense to... And even then, I think even if your world was dynamic, it all just boils down to what's priority for you.
Yeah,
if you just
want to
care
get out
about
in the world, or do you want to just play dungeons?
If you want to get people together so they can run these dungeons, then make that as easy as you possibly can.
Sure.
My only thing, Nelson, that I'm concerned with your interpretation of passive travel as you presented it, and again, maybe I misunderstood it, and if I have, I certainly apologize. But I've always felt that passive travel, while useful, while you're enduring it, you are trapped. I can't count the number of times when I've tried to make use of things like the flight paths in WoW, only to discover that, oh man, I forgot to do this, or I need to go do that, or heaven only knows. And so I use a bug. There's a well-known bug in World of Warcraft, and it may not even be a bug. Maybe it's a feature. Heck if I know. Where if I'm on a big, long flight path, usually these are broken up into hops, by the way. Like if I want to go from point A to point D, it's going to fly me to B and then C, and then I'll land in D. But if I screw up and I need to get off the flight path, I will log out of the game and then log back in. And one of the bugs is it will stop at the next hop and just drop you off. And I can't count the number of times I've done that because I am trapped and there is something else I need to do. And I'm not saying that Warcraft is doing it wrong, but I am saying I wouldn't want to extend that flight any more than I have to, though it would be a nice feature to have to say, hey, let me off at the next stop.
I've got it.
Yeah.
We do make it take, we figure out the size of this world, and we figure out the speeds and all. We do say, all right, to get from city A to city B takes 1 hour and 45 minutes. Real size. But the shuttlecraft, you can buy a standard ticket or an upgraded ticket. The upgraded ticket has, basically when you get on...
you can fly on a 747 to the Concorde?
No, it puts you to sleep. So then it's like instant travel for you.
Yeah, but then you have time discontinuity with all your friends.
Oh, that's a good point. Damn it.
You just ripped apart the space-time
Damn
continuum.
it!
That's why we can't have time slow down when you play Fear, you know?
Damn it, what time is it? Oh, yeah, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning lease time. No wonder I'm getting tired, because I thought that was a great idea.
It is a great idea. It just won't work for a massively multiplayer game.
Crap.
I mean, but, Zach, do you understand my overall, idea here?
You want me to lie or be honest?
He wants the world to truly feel large.
Yeah.
I want there to be a purpose to actually, for you to walk around, to be in the world. I want there to be a reason for you to care about the weather.
This is why I'm confused. I think there already is, I think that reason exists in and of itself, especially if, if we did employ a mechanic where you had to discover a zone before you could take passive travel to it, then you have to have at least gone there once on your own.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely...
The idea of passive travel, and maybe you're right. Maybe I'm just not thinking outside the box. But the idea of passive travel is convenience. And it seems like...
I really mean to offend you with that remark, by the way.
And that's fine. But if you want to get away from that and turn passive travel into an inconvenient thing... then, okay, we go back to why having it. But I can come up with so many reasons why it's a good idea to have that I would like to have something like it.
Okay, well, what if... What was that?
Passive,
Well, Nelson, go ahead, Lauren.
I was just going to say, passive, I find, is a very good thing to hurry up and get to play what I want to play. If I have to sit and spend a heck of a lot of time to get to where I want to go so I can actually play the game, I'd probably eventually quit playing the game.
Now, Nelson, I understand your point. You want people to experience the content, to explore, and that is a good thing. But people will do that. They will go on quests. They will fight. They will explore new areas. Even in WoW, yeah, we do have instant travel, and we've got the passive mechanisms. but most people who have tried have run all over all of the different areas just to get the Explorer achievements that like doing that stuff. Even though you have other mechanisms, they will explore. But don't force every single person to always have to explore, because now you're imposing your style of gameplay on everybody.
Hang on one second. Let's go ahead and stop right here. We're right at the half-hour mark, and we'll pick back up in part 2, which will probably be a little bit shorter than this one as we get things wrapped up. But we're trying to stay on the 30-minute time frame. So we'll go ahead and wrap this video, and we'll see you guys in the next. Thanks.